everyone. Okay, so this is just going to be a fairly short video, but just to show you how to mount a finished piece of work onto a canvas. I try to make my pieces of work sized in line with a canvas, so that's an easy job. I don't always manage that. Sometimes I go completely off-piste and have to make some sort of custom-made board. But my advice would be to think about your mounting before you start, so that you make something that fits easily onto a fairly normal sized canvas. And if you Google artist stretched canvas, you will be able to see fairly quickly what are the common sizes. Somewhere like Hobbycraft will quite often have some unusual sizes, but there are basic sizes, all the A's, so A5, A4, A3, A2, A1, you can get any of those. 2-to-1 ratios are quite common, so like a 24 by 12. And then there's just various other sizes. Squares, you can get squares in lots of different sizes, but it's worth Googling, getting a list of what's available and having that in your mind when you plan your work. It makes it much easier. So this is a piece that I made with the students in the machine artistry course, and I really like it. It's very simple. It was just a photograph of a pair that I'd been jelly printing with many years ago, and I photographed it because I just thought it looked so nice. And then the photograph's been printed out onto layout paper, and then I've used other scraps of fabrics and quite a, you can see on the back, quite an erratic kind of stitching to hold all this down, to give this quite an artistic look, I think. So I really like this and I'd like to mount it. I have made it as I've added additions because that was part of what we were looking at in the class. So the original picture was A4, but then I wanted to show that you can add additions and you can add bits around it, you know, so I've added bits of paper and lace and things on it. And I have ended up, classically for me, making it slightly bigger than A4, but the pear is within the A4. So I think I can trim this so that it will fit nicely onto this canvas. So I'm just having a bit of a look before I start. This is a stretched canvas from Sea Whites. And these are really nice quality. You can see they're neat on the corners, they're neatly done at the back. Actually, you know, to be honest with you, I'm saying that's neat on the corners. I'm not that happy about that corner on there, but anyway, I will live with it. I'm also hoping that blob of paint, yes, is on the wrapper. So I'm just having a look at it first to see where am I going to need to trim this. And I'm obviously going to need to take off a fair bit top to bottom. And I'll have to make a decision about where I want to trim that, and the easiest way to do that is to put that over my canvas and think, well, okay, if I keep the whole of the top in like that, that's what I lose at the bottom. And actually that looks very nice. I don't mind that. I kind of, you know, I'm missing that bottom bit, but that still has a really good base to it. Side to side, it's a much tighter fit, so I would probably end up, let's have a look, I would end up with the white down here, which I like, space above the pear here, and some white down below. It would end on white down here. Now, if I move it up a tiny bit, I could have some of the blue still showing on the bottom, white on the side. I lose some of the top of the pear. So I just need to look at that and decide which do I like best. Do I want it with more of the pear? And I think I do, because I think the pear is the thing that I want people to focus on. So I would like to leave the space around that. I will trim it down to there as near as I can and use that for my sizing, which I will explain in a minute. First thing I want to do with this is I just want to get it nice and flat. So I'm just going to plug in an iron. Don't mount it still. This is flat after stitching. It's not warped, but you can see it's just got, it's not ironed. And if I mount it like that, I will probably be able to flatten it out as I stick it down. But it is easier and safer to just get it nice and flat before you start. And if there are, if it is distorted at all, you may need to block the work. That's a different subject, one for another video. But in terms of if you get your piece flat and if you need to block it, block it. This one doesn't, and one of the beauties of working on paper, this is on layout paper, which both prints and stitches and paints, and dyes beautifully is it doesn't warp, it doesn't distort. So I'm just going to take off that little extra bit of fabric on the back there, very classic back for me. It's not neat, but I'm not bothered. I'm going to just take an iron. I'm just looking how hot it is, get a bit hotter than that. I would spray a bit of water on it if needed. I don't think this does. I'm going on the back largely because this iron isn't very clean, so I'm just checking first that it's not going to drop a whole pile of muck. I do have a clean iron somewhere, but they get very dirty very quickly in the studio because to me they're a tool rather than an iron. So there is a clean iron somewhere for clothes. I don't honestly know where it is, which kind of tells you a bit of a story, doesn't it? I'm going to get that spare bit off there. I'm going to iron the front now. The iron is clean. I'm probably going to rock it up again. Oh, now then, something on there. Okay, let's turn the iron down. Something on there is slightly melting. Now, it might be, that is definitely layout paper. It could be this image. It could be, my guess is there's some synthetics over here. There's lace and synthetics. So I'm just going to go a little more lightly. I'm going to clean off my iron because I felt something melt on it there. And I think I'm going to stick to ironing on the back. And that's going to get that flat enough for this purpose, okay? It's just one bit there, and that's where I hit it just now. So we'll get that nice and flat. I think I may have caused that, but we'll see. Right, so unplug the iron, otherwise I get too hot. Right, next up, so you're going to need, apart from your piece and a canvas, you're going to need a cutting mat, a ruler. I've got a big square one here. I think it's 15.5 inches square, which is a lovely size. You can fit A3 and A2, A4 and A3 really nicely on here. But any quilter's ruler is the best for this because you've got the marks in it to keep you square. A sharp rotary cutter, and then you're going to need, excuse the mess, that's my dyeing drop cloth. I am trying to cover it up, but of course I'm moving things now. You're going to need some gel matte medium for sticking it down. This is Pebeo brand, which I think is exceptionally good. So I've got a tube of that. I've got 2 flat brushes. You want flat, not fat, because you don't want too much glue going around. One is for the matte medium and one is for acrylic wax, which I'm going to put on afterwards to seal the whole piece. I think that's really important with textiles. They degrade over time, and one way of protecting them is to seal them. This ultra matte wax that I have is completely transparent, even on dark fabrics when it's dry. So that's what I'm going to use to seal it, that to stick it down. I've got a couple of brushes. I've also got a sponge roller just for getting rid of any excess medium. I have got a brayer somewhere because I got it out, so I'm just wondering to myself what I've done with that. Anyway, never mind, there's another one. A brayer, and then I've just got a paint tray really for any goo or extra that there happens to be. So the first thing I want to do is just square this off. Now I'm going to start by looking for one side that it is important that it's straight. And to me, it's this down here because I've got this thing down it. So I'm just going to check once more that it does fit onto there. So I can cut this. I need to cut near to this boundary. And I am going to cut, keeping that white line straight. So I'm getting it, just using my ruler to guide me. Okay, the bottom's coming off, so it doesn't matter. So what I'm doing is getting this side so that I'm happy with how that looks, okay? And I'm going to trim that. I'm just going to check once more because that's a fair, yeah, I'm just going to do it. That's a fair bit off. Just take it across a bit because we are going to take the bottom off. Give myself a tiny bit more leeway. Okay, so then with your rotary cutter, I'll probably need to stand up to do this just to get the weight on the cutter. And off with its edge. Do use a sharp rotary cutter. Get spare blades and change them when you need to. You just hack things to pieces otherwise. It's one of my kind of things I really nitpick with my students is, if you're going to make a lovely piece of work, whether it's a sample that's turned out really well or whether it's a whole planned piece of work, don't spoil it in the final stages when you're coming to present it. You know, mount it nicely, use sharp tools. So I have this now. So at this point, I am going to start using my canvas, because the canvases, although they should all be exactly the size they say they are, they frequently aren't, and they're frequently not quite square. So if I want my piece of work to actually sit on here completely in line with the edges, I need to cut it to the canvas. I have discovered that over many years of, you know, say cutting this to A4, which should work, and it doesn't quite. So that's what I'm going to do. These back bits, these bits of wood, these are for going in the back of the canvas to, you'll see there's slats under there, and it's basically to re-stretch the canvas. You're probably not going to need to do that because we're not painting on it. So what I need to do is to get this on here, get rid of those bits. So basically, you can chuck those away unless you want to keep them for something else. I kept them for years because I didn't know what they were, and I thought at some point I'm going to find out what they are, and they're really important. So I had a whole drawer full of them, and then I found out what they were, and I thought, oh, good, I don't need them. So I'm going to size this. I don't want kind of a slither of blue here. That just, I don't like that. So I'm going to size this so that that white is at the bottom, and my pear's up to the top, that's across there. So what I'm going to do now, I've got that lined up exactly where I want it on here, is I'm going to turn it over. I'm holding it. If you've got a bigger piece of work that's quite hard to hold like this, you might want to use a tiny bit of something like 505 spray, which is a temporary adhesive, just to hold it in place, or even a bit of masking tape underneath. I usually manage by just hanging onto it and turning it over, and I'm checking here that that is all in line, and then I turn my canvas, and I'm going to use my canvas to mark it as my ruler. So again, I'm just going to stand up and just angle your cutter in very slightly and cut across, and so long as your cutter's sharp, you won't have any problems. If you it doesn't like the lace. If your cutter isn't sharp, you may have problems. You may start hacking at the canvas, but as long as you can get a sharp cutter, and it should just cut nice and cleanly against those edges. And this will mean that your piece of work will be exactly the same size as your canvas. So it will fit on it to perfection. Now, it's up to you at this stage. Just before I say anything else, I am just going to get a pen. Obviously, I know where the top of my pear is, but I'm just going to put a little T on here so I know where the top of the canvas is, which way up I'm holding it. It may work both ways, but quite often it doesn't. Let's just see if it does, just for interest's sake. It doesn't. It's slightly, it more or less does, but it's slightly overlapped on one side. So keep your orientation. Now I now need to decide, do I want to mount that absolutely flat like that, which I think looks beautiful, or do I want to, I quite like to just bring them in a tiny bit sometimes and just leave a white space around the edge, almost like a mount. Some pieces I will have with quite large white spaces around them, something like that. Sometimes, to be honest with you, because the canvas doesn't fit, but sometimes just because I think it looks nice. With this one, I'm just sort of thinking, do I like it absolutely flat on? Or do I think I would like just that little tiny border, just to mount it, and that is completely up to you. So what I do is, having got the proportions right, I'm going to take it off here, and I am just going to take a tiny bit off each side. Okay, it's very simple, this. So I'm just going to use my ruler, and I'm going to take, oh, what is that, 1/8 of an inch maybe? 1/8 of an inch. So I'm not worrying about whether this is straight here. I'm ignoring all of that, I'm just making sure this is equal, and I'm eyeballing it because my eyes are actually pretty good on that sort of thing. If you're worried, mark it with a ruler. So that's one side, tiny bit here. That's two sides. A tiny bit here. That's three sides. And that's four sides. And I'm doing it on four sides rather than doing a bigger bit on each, on just say two sides, so that I keep my layout as it was. I take an equal amount of each side so that I'm still keeping the same kind of proportion of my picture. Okay, sit back down, close your cutter, don't take things off. And that should now, where's the top of my canvas? There. This should sit on here with just a tiny little space all the way around to frame it. So I'm really happy with that. I'm going to move my cutter, I'm going to move my mats out of the way and grab some of that medium. Okay, so I'm just checking over there's nothing loose on there. And the lovely thing about this is I never tie off my threads, I always just leave them. Everything gets held in now on the back. So we're going to, there's just a mark on this canvas, and it was there when I opened it. I noticed it and thought, don't like the look of that. I'm going to see, it's so much on the edge, I don't honestly think it will show. I'm just going to see if it would like to rub off. And all I need to find to do that is an eraser, of which there should be lots about. Let's put that up there. Or a pencil with an eraser on, or just an eraser. I don't mind, I'm not fussy in here. I have that many little things of stuff that I've been using that I think, oh yes, that's useful. And yet, still, I can never find what I want. Just give me 10 seconds, because I would like to just see if I can get that off. Where are all my pencils? Over there, right. Well, now I've got pencils with erasers on. So, that should do the job. That's a nice clean one. Hello, Dilly. Here I am, helping. That's a good boy. Right, okay. So it's just there. Is it going to come off? Yes. I don't know how it's got there because it was under the plastic. But to be honest, this stuff has been moved around from heaven to high water recently, so I'm not surprised. Okay, so making sure I've got the top here. I'm going to get my gel matte medium. You're going to need a fair bit of that medium for this because mine are backed on felt. Yours might be on wadding. Whatever it is, it's going to absorb quite a lot. So be generous with your medium. And just use your brush and spread that across. So you can see I'm putting on quite a good, big, thick dollop. And this matte medium is lovely. It's a nice medium viscosity. It's a very similar viscosity to my paints. So if I want to take down any of my paints to make them a bit more transparent, because they're very opaque, I can use this. So that's a nice coat on there. I'm happy with that. I've gone right to the edge because it's going to help protect the edges. Grab my paste and just put it on here. And it's so worth getting this right. I'm just going to check it's down to the bottom, the top, and it's that tiny little gap. I mean, it is tiny on this one. It's barely there gap, but that's nice and even all the way around. I'm just checking the side that's not near to me because it looks like it is and then sometimes it isn't. Okay, then I'm going to get my brayer and I'm just going to roll that down. Okay, so it's nice and flat on there. And I'm going to turn it over and do it from the other side. But just before I do that, because there is glue on this, just going to wipe any excess glue there. Okay. And you may notice as you're doing this that bits are coming up on the edges a bit where you've cut stitching away. Don't worry about that. We're going to stick that down in a minute. So turn it over and just go in from the back. You can't get right to the edges. but give it a brayer from the back and press it down so that glues nicely in contact. Okay, that's lovely. I would then let this dry normally before I do anything else, but just so that we can do it all in one video, I'm now going to add the matte medium, not the matte medium, sorry, the ultra matte wax, which seals this up. So I've got a pot of this. So this is the ultra matte. I'm not going to tip it because it'll pour. Ultra matte, not the satin matte. I just wanted invisible matte finish on here. And I'm going to go quite lightly with this because a lot of texture on this and I don't want to lose it, but I do want to protect it. So at the edges, I can see as I'm doing it, there's threads where I've cut across the machine stitching. So I'm just getting those held in. Let's get around those edges first. And I'm going to do the edge of the canvas as well, so that it's all protected and wipeable. So when I finish this, the whole piece will be wipeable, which makes such a difference. You know, whether you're putting it up in your own home or selling it to somebody else to go in their home, you want it to last many, many years. Okay, and I'm just going to put some at the top as well on that bit, then that's that done. Right, so then up this edge, and then again, there's a few little bits where I can see just little bits of thread kicking out, so we'll get those held down. And this piece here, where this bit of lace has obviously lost its securing stitching, so I'm going to use my wax to hold that down. So the reason the wax will hold it down is it's acrylic wax, so it is also, anything that's acrylic is also a glue. This is very light because it's much thinner than the matte medium, but it does act as a glue, so it will hold all this lot down. Okay, so I'm just going to go over everything on here. I'm going to try and keep that nice texture in these. They'll look a bit darker when I first do them. That's just because this is very wet. But that will dry off. So I'm sort of flicking at this. It's not often I do things that are textural, but this one is. And I really like it. I really like it. It was a fabulous technique, and I'm thinking, why haven't I done some more of it? Because I really enjoyed it when we did it in the class. Okay, so I'm sort of flicking it over there to try and keep some of those pieces sticking up and having some nice texture on there. So it will look a little darker as I do it. I'm going carefully because these were trimmed pieces from, I've no idea what now looking at them. And I have no idea, I have a feeling they might have been sari silks or something like that. I don't know whether they were ever sealed. So it may be that they would leak dye. Let's just see. Oh, a tiny bit. Really only a tiny bit, but it's always worth being careful because if you do have some dye on there, or if you use things like Brusho or drawing inks or lots of other media, water-based media, it will start moving again if you haven't sealed it. Usually I seal all my papers and fabric, well, all my papers with wax, this same wax, and my fabrics would be fixed with a soda ash. Okay, so that is now covered. I'm just going to very lightly take a sponge roller. I'm not pushing hard on here. I'm just going over to take off any excess. I'm making sure it's all nice and tidy. I'm going to let that dry, and then I will most likely give it one more coat, just so that it's fully, and especially around the edges, so that it's fully and completely sealed. And that's a really nice job, isn't it? And then that's just ready to hang up. So I hope that's been helpful for you. I'm off to walk the doggies now, who've been very patient while I do that, and I'll see you all soon. Bye now, bye.